Saying that, he couldn't stop exclaiming, "This lass is really something." This is considered as a classic example of the weak winning the strong. Especially when Lazy Chu only had that short span of flaw. Even if I were to go into a trance, it would be extremely difficult to catch hold of, but she managed to do so in one shot. Li Moying stretched out his hand as he touched his chin, but eventually he couldn't bear it and let out a slight smile. The weak winning the strong. I think it's a mouse being tricked by a cat. Young sect master, you said something. Li Moying's voice was extremely soft, so Jiang Tuxin didn't hear him clearly. However, Li Moying didn't answer him. An extremely anxious expression filled his face as he stood up from his seat. Young sect master, Jiang Tuxin has just said those few words, but he'd already seen Li Moying's shadow suddenly escaping out and at lightning speed rushing towards the center of the tournament stage. What happened? The few of them hurriedly stood up, but they were not able to chase up to Li Moying's speed. On the tournament stage, Huang Yueli was all smiles as she walked towards the referee teacher and received her own identity token. Star currency in Celestial Light Academy were all directly deposited in everyone's identity token, and since the winner and loser had been determined, referee teacher directly deposited 11,000 over star currency into her identity token. Lazy Chu laid flat on the ground watching with his own eyes how his star currency disappeared. Gone. He felt a twitching pain in his heart as his expression became even twisted. This was not just a little star currency, not tens, not hundreds, or thousands, but 11,000. What concept was 11,000? An ordinary student from the start till graduation may find it hard to even earn 1,000 star currency because just based on the Academy's conventional missions, earning star currency was just too difficult. Only those core students with powerful abilities and ranked top few in martial arts stage were able to continuously battle and hunt the high-leveled magical beasts to exchange for star currency, then would the speed pick up. But although those top-ranking practitioners earn star currency quickly, they spend it even faster. They need more high-leveled cultivation methods, profound skills, higher grade of profound armament, and even more closed-door cultivation timing than the others. All of these were exchanged using star currency. In this way, the star currency that they spent were like flowing water, and sometimes they'd even spend it all in one day, which was what others made in an entire year. Lazy Chu naturally wasn't an exception. The amount of star currency that he had was just about this 10,000 or so. To have 10 over 1,000 of spare cash, he originally intended to go to the Academy's profound weapon chambers to exchange for a piece of 5th-tier profound armament to raise his own ability. For that 5th-tier profound armament, he had already accumulated it for a very, very long time. He didn't even bear to rent the best closed-door cultivation room just so that he could exchange for the profound armament to amaze everyone with a single brilliant feat in the second semester of the Academy's meet. Just because star currency was very difficult to earn, so besides standing up for Li Shuer, he was also eyeing Huang Yueli's 10 over 1,000 star currency. Just one battle and he would be able to gain 10,000 star currency. Such a good thing doesn't happen very often unless it was a battle between the top 10 contenders, then would they bet such huge stakes. But the risk in losing this kind of battles is very huge, and in fact it was very risky, not as relaxing as bullying a new student. But each new student only had 100 star currency of asset and there wasn't any other advantage, so Lazy Chu normally wouldn't lower himself to find trouble for them. This round was totally different. And using the excuse of saving a damsel in distress plus the temptation of 10,000 star currency, where would you find such a good opportunity? You can also listen on. Lazy Chu was counting his eggs before they hatched, thinking that this was a good chance to shoot 3 condors with 1 arrow and would absolutely fill his tubs with riches. Whoever knew that towards the end, not only did he not gain anything, he actually lost all 11,000 star currency. How did things turn out to be so abnormal? Why was that new stop student so ridiculously strong? Whenever Lei Zichu recalled how hard he worked to accumulate those star currency just to lose it all in this battle which he was absolutely sure that he would win, into an unknown new student's pocket, he was so infuriated until he almost fainted. His star currency. Such a huge amount of star currency. Moreover, losing the star currency was already very pitiful. He had confidently swore that he would win this battle. But now, it was akin a resounding slap on his face. His martial arts stage rank right was lost to a new student. In future, how was he able to raise his head up? The most infuriating of all was when Lei Zichu turned to look at Li Shuer. He realized that Li Shuer was backing away slowly from him, pulling apart their distances. Lei Zichu was so infuriated as he clenched his teeth and hissed out at her. Li Shuer took another step back and said, "Time's almost up, I gotta go. I still have that several 100,000 medium-grade spirit stones to return." Li Shuer was filled with disgust towards Lei Zichu. Some time ago, she had thought that Lei Zichu was powerful enough and could depend on him and could only thought of how to loosen the reins only to grasp him better, using all sorts of ways to capture his heart. But now upon seeing Lei Zichu losing to Huang Yueli, her thinking changed immediately. Wasn't she hugging on to Lei Zichu so that he could deal with Huang Yueli? In the end his ability was just not there. Then what use did she have for him? Moreover, Lei Zichu's loss was painfully heavy. Having lost to a new student, his reputation was going to take a huge hit, and moreover he had lost 11,000 star currency, so his future cultivation resources were going to be affected greatly. If she continued staying with him, wouldn't it become an embarrassment? As a future armament master, why bother to hang herself on a tree? Her best option now was to ditch him and find a better backing. If it wasn't for the sake that Lei Zichu was powerful and his family background was outstanding, Li Shuer wasn't even willing to speak to him on such excuses. Yet, after saying such superficial words, was Lei Zichu so stupid until he didn't understand her meaning? He was so angry that his entire face turned red, wishing he could use one palm strike to strike Li Shuer dead on the spot. But his movements became retarded from his injuries and Li Shuer ran extremely fast, so Lei Zichu wasn't able to chase up to her at all. He had nowhere to unleash his anger, so he turned his head once more. Huang Yueli was all smiles as she was praised by the referee teacher, and all the other students also surrounded her with praises. Many of them were people who fawned upon him had instantly went to booklick Huang Yueli. Everyone knew that if they had to booklick, it made more sense to pick the thicker thigh. It was obvious that in their hearts that Lei Zichu was already passé. Lei Zichu saw this happening and he was not able to contain the fury and jealousy within his heart, so evil intents crept up upon him as he pulled out a silvery ball-like item from his realm ring. Everyone's attention was on Huang Yueli and no one bothered about the defeated him. Lei Zichu took the opportunity to aim towards Huang Yueli's direction and injected his profound energy from his fingertips, throwing the ball-like object ferociously from her back. You can also listen on. In that moment that Lei Zichu snuck the attack, signs of alarm were already ringing for Huang Yueli. But as the distance between them was rather close and Lei Zichu used a specialized technique, so his speed was extremely swift and she could not react in time. The fact that the profound weapon that Lei Zichu threw out was extremely special, the speed of that item was multiplied. Huang Yueli dodged in an attempt to evade but felt that the profound weapon had instantly reached behind her back as vibrations of a powerful profound energy started to surface. Before it had actually touched her, her chest was already feeling the pain as her blood rages and her complexion turned pale white instantly. Soul fixation pearl. Huang Yueli swiftly responded in time and realized what was the item that Lei Zichu had thrown towards her. But it was too late. The distance between the soul fixation pearl and her was barely 1 meter and it continued to vibrate, giving out a sharp buzzing sound, as it grew louder and louder. Following that, with a bam, it exploded. The might of the explosion from the soul fixation pearl was too strong, and the entire martial arts stage was instantly covered by that blinding bright light as the rood was instantly blown away. Powerful airflow rushed through the viewing platform, and whenever it went, everything was turned into a complete disorder, and many students were flicked out of the martial arts stage boundary towards the outside as they fainted from the impact. Huang Yueli bore the brunt of it all, and as the might of the explosion was too strong, she knew that she would not be able to handle it, so she had already summoned all her profound energy into a defensive stance. Along with the 5th-tier defensive armor that she was wearing, her life should not be in danger. But it was inevitable to get seriously injured. Huang Yueli shut her eyes tightly and prepared for the incoming pain. But suddenly she felt her waist tightened as her body lost balance, and she crashed heavily against a warm thing while her petite body was wrapped up. Immediately following that, sounds of explosion could be heard, but the expected pain did not come along with it. The only thing was the energy around her waist grew strong and strong, almost suffocating her. It was until the explosion ended when she regained her senses and realized that the solid and warm thing that she was leaning against seemed to be a man's chest. Huang Yueli quickly lifted her head to look at the face of the man who was hugging her. But just at this moment, she suddenly felt faint and subsequently lose consciousness. Li Moying stretched out his hand and caught Huang Yueli's falling body in time. Looking at her slightly pale face, his expression was as ugly as it could get. Moe quickly rushed over from the viewing platform as he rushed right next to them. Seeing Li Moying's gloomy expression, he didn't dare to speak a single word and could only lower his head on one side, not even daring to breathe loudly. Third miss had actually been plotted against under his master's eyelid and almost suffered a serious injury. This was his master's darling. It was imaginable on what degree his master was infuriated too. Jiang Yusin and Ling Wenbin were just one step too late and looking at the tournament stage and shaky martial arts stage, their faces sunk. Soul fixation pearl. And it's a 7th grade soul fixation pearl. Is Lei Zichu mad? Just because he lost a battle, he actually used the soul fixation pearl. The soul fixation pearl was something which high-level practitioners would use before they die. The usage was to congeal their last profound energy into it, and after inciting the explosion, it was comparable to that practitioner's totally focused effect. Generally speaking, this was the last ace card which practitioners would use to save their lives. Lei Zichu was nurtured under a reputable large family's talent, and to have such a thing on him wasn't strange at all. You can also listen on. But no one had expected him to cast out a soul fixation pearl just because of such a small matter. Ling Wenbin was extremely angry. Lei Zichu is too much, he doesn't know how to distinguish between the degree of seriousness. Just for a small matter, he actually dealt his junior sister with such vicious hand, without any regard for the safety of all other people present. Because of this soul fixation pearl of his, so many practitioners on the viewing platform were seriously injured. Jiang Tuxin saw Li Moying's doleful expression, and he had already let loose a stream of abuse against Lei Zichu in his heart. It was an exceptional chance that young sect master had paid a visit, and before he could show off his performance, it had been ruined by this fellow Lei Zichu. In what light would young sect master see him in when he saw the academy's martial arts stage being blown to pieces? Jiang Tuxin was so angry that his mustache stuck up. Lei Zichu, do you think that just because you're Lei family's young master, you are above the academy's rules and regulations? I'm telling you, this matter will not go to rest so easily. After Lei Zichu casted out the soul fixation pearl, he also suffered a backlash and his internal injuries worsened, which made him spit out a mouthful of blood. His looks looked even sorrier than before. He had thought that after he threw out the soul fixation pearl, Huang Yueli would die an ugly death. Who'd had expected that she was saved by someone? He had even used the treasure that his family gave him to save his life. Moreover, he was risking the huge possibility of being expelled. However, Huang Yueli was safe and sound. Lei Zichu was both shocked and angry, and even though he saw Jiang Tuxin infuriated, he wasn't frightened of him a single bit. Principal Jiang, what do you intend to do? Expel me? Think about it carefully. In our Lei family's history, so many disciples had joined Celestial Light sect. My uncle Lei Dongyu is the main sect's #1 protector. If you were to expel me, it wouldn't be an easy feat to explain to my uncle. Jiang Tuxin was so angry that his head almost smoked fumes. He'd never expected Lei Zichu to be so daring to have committed such a huge mistake and still dared to rebuke him. But what he said was right. Lei Zichu's uncle, Lei Dongyu, was a 8th-stage realm top exponent, and as he was still young, there was a possibility that he would further advance. If it wasn't for no choice, Jiang Tuxin actually didn't want to offend the other party. Lei Zichu saw Jiang Tuxin's hesitation and revealed a smile. He knew that if he used his uncle's name, he would be able to walk horizontally in Celestial Light Academy. Not many people dared to offend him. However, just as he was bloating with joy, a chilly voice was heard from not too far away. Principal Jiang will definitely not expel you. Because you're going to be a dead person immediately. To expel a dead person, there's no need to do so. Lei Zichu turned his head and froze. He was dealing with Jiang Tuxin earlier, and it was until this moment that he noticed that the man who was hugging Huang Yueli had an extraordinary imposing manner and an extremely attention-grabbing handsome face. You, who are you? You want to kill me? Lei Zichu wanted to laugh initially, but Li Moying suddenly stood up and turned towards him. The instant that sharp and penetrating eyes swept past him, Lei Zichu's smile congealed. A chilling sensation arose from his heart. Li Moying held the consciousness Huang Yueli tighter and single-handedly held onto her slim waist, allowing her head to rest upon his shoulder and leaning against his neck, which made her more comfortable. As though Huang Yueli could sense that she was leaning against a lean and robust man's body, which was safe and dependable, her lips rose slightly. You can also listen on. After Li Moying had settled Huang Yueli, he walked towards Lei Zichu. Every step he took, Lei Zichu instinctively took a step backwards. Don't come over. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my uncle is? I'm warning you, Li Moying indifferently said. You dare to hurt my woman, how do you wish to die? What? Your woman. Lei Zichu looked at the young lady in his embrace, thinking that he had understood. After so long, this was just another fellow who was trying to stand up for a woman. His ability looked extraordinary, and he had never seen him before, so he shouldn't be a student of Celestial Light Academy. This was easy to deal with. For women, no matter how huge a debt or how strong the hatred was, as the saying went, women were like clothing, so you can change it any time you want to. Lei Zichu hurriedly exclaimed, This brother, no, hero, that, I was also standing up for my woman to have made such a mistake. I didn't know that she was under your protection and unintentionally offended you. As you can see, she's all right now, so why don't we make peace? My uncle is a 8th-stage realm practitioner, and if this matter is blown up, it won't do you any good as well. Li Moying laughed icily. Since you don't want to choose, then I'll choose for you. What? Woo. Li Moying's figure flickered and he was already in front of Lei Zichu. Lei Zichu only felt his eyes were in a blur and had not realized what had happened before he felt himself being strangled, instantly unable to breathe. Lei Zichu's face had flushed red as he kept struggling. However, those struggles were just a waste of effort. Lei Zichu felt an extremely powerful profound energy entering from his head and instantly flushed through every single inch of his meridians. His surrounding blood and bones were being crushed bit by bit, giving out a crackling sound as intense pain came washing over him, so painful that he wished he could faint on the spot. But not only did he not faint, he couldn't even cry out a single bit. He couldn't move, couldn't make a sound, but unexpectedly, his conscience was much clearer than any other time, so he could only forcibly bear with this inhumane pain. As compared to his physical pain, the more terrifying thing was that he could clearly feel that his dantian was completely torn apart. The profound energy within his body insanely rushed outwards, and very quickly, it had been drawn to a knot completely. To a practitioner, nothing was more terrifying than this. This meant that he was completely been deposed. Lei Zichu's facial features were twisted and he suffered in pain for a long time. Just at this moment, Huang Yueli gave out a soft "amen" sound. Li Moying's attention was diverted immediately when his hand loosened, as though a puddle of mud. Lei Zichu fell soft onto the ground. Jiang Tuxin and the rest shockingly discovered that Li Moying had really shattered his entire body's bones and meridians. So Lei Zichu's body had no form of support and could only stay like a pound of minced meat, wiggling on the ground. But due to the extreme pain, his face had turned as horrifying as a devil. This, Jiang Tuxin and Ling Wenbin's eyes almost popped out, unable to believe what they had just seen. They had originally thought that although this young sect master's cultivation was high, but as he was very young and had not experienced much things, so his character should be mellower. But fact had proven itself that Li Moying's heart was cold like steel and stone, his moves were decisive and his intentions were icy cold, similar to those peerless top exponents who had gained fame for many years. You can also listen on. Li Moying didn't pay any attention to their gazes and he withdrew his arm, concernedly looking towards the young lady in his embrace. "Lear, are you all right?" However, Huang Yueli only moved that little bit and continued to remain unconscious. Li Moying gave a simple diagnosis based on her pulse. Experienced practitioners more or less had some medical knowledge, and since Huang Yueli's condition wasn't too complicated and she was hurt by the force of impact by the soul fixation pearl, so she had only lost conscious and wasn't particularly heavily injured. Li Moying heaved a sigh of relief, but he didn't dare to waste too much time here. He carried Huang Yueli horizontally and turned around to give his instructions. "Principal Jiang, where does Lear stay? Quickly lead the road." "Oh. I will lead the way now." Jiang Tuxin went into a blank and almost immediately reacted to hurriedly lead the way. Earlier when he saw how Li Moying suddenly struck out to deal with Lei Zichu and later on his interaction with Huang Yueli left him completely in a daze. If it hadn't been the fact that he knew young sect master already had a peerless fiancée, he believed that the young lady in his arms was the future young sect mistress. But even if she wasn't, don't their relationship look a little too ambiguous? Surely it can't be true. Jiang Tuxin was appalled in his heart, but he didn't dare to raise his question. Moe followed Li Moying along with the others and asked, "Master, what should we do to this drag who dared to deal with such a heavy hand on third miss?" "Just forget it like that." Jiang Tuxin almost tripped. He was already being treated like this and was still considered as, "just forget it like that." He didn't know how to explain to Lei Dongyu after Lei Zichu had turned into such a state in Celestial Light Academy. Who knew that Li Moying stopped in his footsteps and said coldly, "How to handle, do you need me to teach you? Feed him to that snow condor which pulls our flying ship. It hasn't eaten any meat in a long time, so today we can feed him with something good." Jiang Tuxin jumped and after thinking, he suddenly shuddered. Young sect master's intention was to treat Lei Zichu as animal food to feed the snow condor. How could that happen? Jiang Tuxin hurriedly chased over and cried out, "Young sect master, PL, please don't be rash. Lei Zichu didn't lie earlier. His uncle Lei Dongyu is really a first-rate protector of our sect and is highly valued by the sect master." Li Moying casted a glance at him and Jiang Tuxin shivered uncontrollably from his glance and he stopped. Li Moying couldn't be bothered to reply him and directly carried Huang Yueli away. Jiang Tuxin didn't dare to say anything more and hung his head down as he led the way. It was until they reached Huang Yueli's residence and after Li Moying had carried her into the room when Moe patted Jiang Tuxin on his shoulder. Principal Jiang, you must be cautious when you speak in front of young sect master. He's just a protector, is it worth for young sect master to let him off? Moreover, this round Lei Zichu had almost injured third miss and this is one of young sect master's contrary scales. But Lei Zichu had already been deposed by young sect master. Moreover, Lei Dongyu is a real 8th-stage realm expert, so what? Moe replied indifferently, once young sect master had decided, no one can change his mind. If you're afraid of being implicated, you can tell Lei Dongyu that it was young sect master's orders to kill him. Just wait and see if that Lei fellow dares to say a word of no in front of young sect master. I have another piece of advice for Principal Jiang. Anything regarding third miss by, please handle with extreme care. If you were to infuriate young sect master, even if sect master were to appear in person, no one would be able to help you. Saying that, Moe also took his leave. Only Jiang Tuxin, who had his face filled with shock, stood blankly on the spot. You can also listen on. Inside Huang Yueli's room. Li Moying put the young lass onto the bed and looked around at the surroundings, thereafter frowning in dissatisfaction. Actually, the room that Celestial Light Academy had allocated to the new top student had a large space and the environment wasn't bad at all. More importantly, it was naturally filled with a dense level of profound qi which aided in cultivation. But from what Li Moying saw, this room was just too simple and crude, totally not worthy of his leer. And, terrible. I feel terrible, the little thing on the bed suddenly moaned blurred words. Li Moying anxiously scrambled over to her bedside. Leer, where do you feel uncomfortable? Hot, very hot. Scalding, Li Moying's gaze subconsciously fell onto her body as the young lady's low voice tossed around, making him unable to take his sight away. However, seeing the unusual flush on her face, Li Moying forced himself to withdraw his glance. He outstretched his hand and put it onto Huang Yueli's forehead, feeling her scalding forehead. She's running a fever. He frowned and realized that Huang Yueli was sprouting a lot of sweat. The compact sweat beads had slipped from her slender neck all the way down towards her collarbone, soaking into her clothes. Li Moying sucked in a breath of air silently as he frowned slightly. The reason why Huang Yueli was burning up was because of her internal injury. That soul fixation pearl was left down by a 7th-stage realm practitioner and the impact from the profound energy was too intense. Even if Li Moying lent a helping hand, he was still late by a bit and Huang Yueli was still injured. To help her get better, besides taking medicinal oils, the faster way would be for someone with a higher cultivation than hers to use profound energy and connect all her meridians. But in this way, their bodies would need to be in close contact. Li Moying only hesitated for a briefest moment before he put his hand to remove the buttons on Huang Yueli's clothes. Anyway, Lear was destined to be his woman, so taking several glances should be all right. Moreover, he wasn't really going to do anything improper to her. All these happened for a reason. Huang Yueli's outer robe quickly fell onto the ground and she was wearing an extremely thin inner clothes on the inside which was weaved by heavenly natural silk. It was cooling and breathable, and was strong in defense, but it looked very translucent. Even if she was wearing clothes, he could clearly see the curves on her body, and because the inner clothes was already soaked by Huang Yueli's sweat, the material hugged tightly onto her body shape and this fell into Li Moying's eyes. That pair of soul-sucking peach blossom eyes instantly ran deep by several degrees. If it hasn't been something that he witnessed, Li Moying would never have thought that his little thing had such a shapely figure. Just a few months ago when he met this little fox, she looked short and flat, and her looks were merely delicate. Now, it had only been 3 months apart, but she seemed like she had grown quite a bit as her features became delicately perfect and her height also increased by quite a bit. And the most important thing was, from what he saw now, her figure seemed to underwent a transformation. Li Moying lowered his eyes slightly and he leaned forward, pressing onto Huang Yueli's body. That cold, emotionless thin lips fell onto her cheek. You can also listen on. He still remembered Huang Yueli's internal injury, so he restrained his kiss, only lightly pecking her, gently tasting the sweet smell on her lips before he backed off. But at this moment, Huang Yueli suddenly stretched out her arms and pulling his clothes on his chest, she pulled him downwards and her soft lips proactively leaned towards him. You, Li Moying raised his brows in surprise, but before he could say a word, it was shoved back immediately. This was the first time that Huang Yueli had been proactive towards him. Even if he knew the young lady in his embrace was not clear-headed now, the raging fire in his body was still stirred up by that inexperienced lick kisses. He used one hand to stop the little hand that was moving about on his chest while the other hand locked Huang Yueli's shoulder as he kissed back intensely. However, Huang Yueli didn't back down and still proactively explored while learning from his actions. The both of them tangled fiercely together. Li Moying had never in his wildest dreams imagined that the little lass in his embrace could be so passionate to such an extent. He was unable to control himself momentarily and could only depend on his natural ability to confine this little fox onto the bed while fiercely kissing her. As they kissed, the fire gradually spread. Li Moying's hand uncontrollably found its way inside Huang Yueli's inner shirt and his hand touched a piece of soft. That exquisite skin was akin to the highest grade of satin, making him unable to resist and repeatedly fondling with tender care, unable to pull away from it. His passionate kiss ran all the way downwards to Huang Yueli's neck, as he gradually started licking and kissing her collarbone. Huang Yueli was exceptionally compliant towards all his actions and even proactively rubbed against his body. Leer, my Leer, Li Moying hugged her even tighter. When Huang Yueli heard his voice, her tightly shut eyes opened up slightly but was still in a daze. At this point of time, her conscience was still not completely clear and in the mid of dizziness, she didn't know what she was doing at all. She only knew that the voice and tone that she heard was very familiar and it seemed to come from somewhere from far, yet it seemed like it was coming beside her ear. Leer. Leer, who was calling out for her? In her daze, she seemed to see an extremely handsome and extraordinary face. That pair of sharp, penetrating and yet charming blossom eyes was intently focused on her, as though she was the most valuable treasure. Underneath that pair of eyes was a straight nose bridge, cold thin lips, and the perfectly chiseled chin was as perfect as a sculpture. That thick brows were raised as the head was lowered slightly. The charm and sexiness of a man made one close to suffocation. Just an expression was enough to make a woman infatuated with this man, a matured man. At this moment, Huang Yueli seemed to see Mu Qingying. Leer. You're so pretty, a deep sexy voice was heard beside her ear and in that cold yet passionate tone seemed so familiar, just like how Mu Qingying used to converse with her. In the bewilderedness, the man before her eyes lowered his head and kissed her. When the two lips made contact, Huang Yueli almost cried. Such familiar kiss, such feeling, she had been waiting for decades, centuries, forever. Feeling the man who dabbled and was about to stop, she instinctively stretched out her hand and pulled onto his clothes before proactively leaning over to kiss that man spontaneously. There was only one thought in her mind. It hadn't been easy for her to meet Mu Qingying, so she wasn't going to let him leave. You can also listen on. The kisses between them became more intense. Huang Yueli was extremely spontaneous and extremely eager. In her past life, she had already been regretful on one matter, which was from beginning till end, she had never belonged to Mu Qingying truly. That man was obviously powerful enough and had enough charm. Just by using a little tricks, he could easily obtain her, but he had always been waiting the moment where she was totally willing, but Huang Yueli eventually didn't agree. It was until the last moment when her soul dispersed when she realized that her heart had already gone to Mu Qingying. Only, she was unyielding, pampered and shy, so she wasn't willing to admit it. If time could turn back, she would definitely admit frankly that she also liked Mu Qingying and she was willing to be with him, to accept his everything. This kink had repeatedly happened in her dreams after her rebirth and became an unmovable thought in the inner depths of her heart. This time during her loss of conscience, she seemed to have felt Mu Qingying touching her. Moreover, it was more passionate than any other times in her past life. The two of them were so close to one another and had been so intimate, as though it had ironed out the uneasiness in her heart. Huang Yueli uncontrollably wanted even more. Her little hands restlessly stretched into the man's robe. Huang Yueli curiously caressed here and there, and while she was happily playing around, she suddenly heard a man's deep panting sound from above her. Little fox, Huang Yueli heard this familiar address and her lips curled upwards. Mu Qingying had always called her little fox. She hooked the man's neck and rubbed her little face towards it. I miss you so much, I miss you dearly too. This little thing's sweet voice softly said those sweet nothings as Li Moying jolted, only feeling a headful of softness as his gaze also became gentler. After the two of them separated outside Sky Cloud City, Li Moying had returned to the sect. But once he had free time, he uncontrollably thought of this little lass. The only thing was Li Moying felt that it was impossible that Huang Yueli would think of him like he thought of her, keeping him on her mind. She usually looked so fleety and would always take the evading attitude towards his different ways of expressing love. Now, she suddenly said, she missed him. Could it be that this little thing actually loved him but was too shy to admit? Just at this moment, Huang Yueli felt his actions had stopped and started to feel anxious. Her little hands felt Li Moying's back as she gently kissed him by his ear. Don't leave me. I beg you, don't leave me. In her hallucination, Huang Yueli seemed to see that Mu Qingying being surrounded by several ninth-stage realm experts in the northern ice fields in order to save her. Fear took over her senses. She wasted no time in trying to catch the man before her, not allowing him to leave. As for Li Moying, he had been overwhelmed by her passionate act and he really didn't think that the little fox's inner heart would be so insecure, and moreover, she needed him so urgently. Li Moying was on fire from her caress and he was unable to control himself as he fiercely kissed her back. That delicate and weak little thing was so soft, yet so compliant, making him simply unable to resist. You can also listen on PL, please don't die. Just as Li Moying could barely control himself, suddenly he heard Huang Yueli's sleep talk. Li Moying's actions halted as a sense of non-understanding arose in his heart at that instance. Don't die. What did that mean? Wasn't he alive and kicking right now? Why did this little thing suddenly say such a ridiculous thing? But this thought only lasted for a short while in his head. Sorry. Woo-woo. I'm sorry. Huang Yueli suddenly hugged him and buried her face into his neck as she started sobbing. This little thing's tears were dripping on him but yet it seemed to be scorching his heart. Li Moying heard her whimpering sound and regained some senses of consciousness. He stretched out his hand to push aside Huang Yueli's long hair and hugged her shoulder while a hoarse voice rang beside her ear. Why are you crying? Are you not willing? But you initiated it. Li Moying clenched his teeth, secretly feeling frustrated. Whoever saw his beloved woman lying there and suddenly started to sob, bearing a bullied expression, would feel extremely upset. Why on earth was this little thing crying? Wasn't everything all right earlier? Li Moying had never thought that in Huang Yueli's eyes, at this moment, whatever she saw were all images from her past life and not the actual him. Woo-woo-woo, why do you treat me so well? Perhaps it was because she missed Mu Qingying too much. Huang Yueli suddenly felt extremely fragile as her tears continued to flow downwards. Actually, she wasn't a fragile person. However tough or difficult situations, she had the absolute confidence and ability to face it and would never easily give up. She had once thought that she would never cry in front of others, but at this moment when she thought she was once again being embraced by Mu Qingying, she was totally unable to suppress that sense of grievance and terror. Li Moying was shocked by the increase in her tears and could not be bothered to follow through that debt. He sat up and carefully embraced Huang Yueli, holding up her little face as he lowered his head to kiss her tears. This was the first time he had seen her cry. This little thing had always been filled with self-confidence, and at any one point of time, she was so strong without any fear, as though nothing could hurt her at all. But at this moment, she seemed so fragile. Why? Was she bullied by someone when he wasn't around? Surely it couldn't be that she was shocked into tears by what he did earlier. Please, stop crying. Who bullied you? Tell me and I'll go take revenge for you. Or have I made you unhappy? Tell me, I'll listen to everything you say. All right. Li Moying lowered his head as he tried to coax her. In order to stop the little thing in his embrace from crying, he came out with whatever means he could. All sorts of sweet nothings which were extremely mushy were told without any hesitation, in the hope to make his little fox smile. If Moe and the rest were present, they would probably have been shocked to death. The man in front of them was embroiled in matters of the heart. In what way did he reflect his usual sense of callousness? You can also listen on. This was totally not the same person at all. However, Li Moying didn't realize which part had he nor performed well. He only knew that from Huang Yueli's tears, he felt a constant heartache, as though a splitting pain from deep within was pulling his spirit apart into two halves, painful to the extreme. He would do anything just as long as Huang Yueli stopped crying. Perhaps his patient coaxing took effect, or perhaps Huang Yueli cried so much until she was tired. She finally gradually stopped, and with a hiccup and tears and mucus still on her face, she rubbed against Li Moying's chest. As a man who had slight mysophobia, not only didn't he feel uncomfortable, instead he held on to Huang Yueli's shoulder, deeply concerned that she was tired from crying, trying to lay her down to rest. But Huang Yueli refused to be manipulated by him, holding on to his arm tightly. No, please don't leave me. I'm not. Why would I leave you? I can't bear to stay by your side always. Li Moying painfully pecked her on the cheek. Be good. You've gone through an entire day of battle and even got injured, don't you feel tired? Lie down and rest a little while. All right. I'll get you a glass of water. You've cried so much and you'll be dehydrated. Huang Yueli shook her head furiously. I don't want to drink water, don't leave me. Her slender fingers subconsciously grabbed hold of him tightly as her fingernails etched deeply into Li Moying's muscular arm. Li Moying felt a wave of pain. After all, this little thing was a third-stage realm practitioner, and that strength was not something that a mere physical body would handle. But Li Moying couldn't bear to use his profound energy to deflect her. However, his brows didn't even crease. He gently stroked Huang Yueli's shoulder as he replied in a low voice, all right, I won't leave. I'll stay right here beside you, all right. Huang Yueli didn't say anything but nodded her head furiously while in his embrace. Li Moying adjusted his position and leaned against the bedhead so that Huang Yueli could lean more comfortably in his embrace as she leaned on him. At this moment, although the little thing's clothes were disheveled, and that tender breasts was leaning against his muscular chest, he didn't have the same thoughts which he did earlier. He hugged the little lass and his heart was filled with peace, feeling that as long as he could hold her in his embrace, it was the greatest satisfaction. As time slowly went past, Li Moying also started to feel drowsy. But just at this moment, Huang Yueli suddenly spoke out. Did you know? I've never understood why you always treat me this well. That voice was very tiny, and if one didn't prick up their ears, one wouldn't be able to hear her clearly. But Li Moying was very alert and immediately became sober. He had never expected Huang Yueli to suddenly say such things. He thought, this lass was fast asleep. However, he didn't move, neither did he make any sound. He only listened quietly to Huang Yueli's hushed recitation. Actually, for so many years, I've never believed that your intentions towards me is real. I only feel that you merely think that my innate talent was comparable to yours. I know that you had obtained a set of couple cultivation method and it requires a lady with an innate talent of 9th grade and above to comply before you can cultivate. I had always thought that you got near me so that you can make me do the couple cultivation with you. Besides that, it was also because you saw value in my armament refining talent. Of course, you've been good to me. Always been very good, but this sort of good with motive, I don't care for it. You can also listen on. Until that day, I already knew I was going to die, but yet you rushed there to save me, not caring one bit about your own life or sacrifice your cultivation. It was then when I realized that I was wrong. A dying person was obviously not worth anything to you. Why were you still so silly? You're so silly. As Huang Yueli spoke, her voice became softer and softer, softer and softer. Gradually, it no longer could be heard clearly. But her voice that had gone into Li Moying's ears were like lightning on a clear day, striking directly into his heart. What was his little fox talking about? Who was she talking about? Li Moying knew most clearly that he and Huang Yueli merely got acquainted just 3 months ago and not many years ago. He had never obtained any couple cultivation method and he didn't need to find anything to couple cultivate. Of course, for that little thing, he absolutely wouldn't mind sacrificing his cultivation, but he hadn't had the chance. So the person whom Huang Yueli was talking about wasn't him. Wasn't him. Having realized that suddenly, Li Moying felt that his entire body was immersed into an icehouse, freezing his body all the way into his inner heart. He wasn't the one whom this little thing liked, not him. She was responding passionately, daringly seducing that man, but it was not him. No wonder she usually kept rejecting his advances. No wonder she acted abnormal today, proactively nearing him, to the extent of not rejecting any kind of advances that he made. The reason for her abnormality was simply too easy to understand. Because her conscience was not clear, because she already had a man whom she liked in her heart and she treated him as that man. This could only blame Li Moying for usually being overconfident. Ever since he joined Celestial Light sect, he had always been talented and could do whatever he wanted. He was the perfect idol whom many young ladies chased after, and he naturally thought that if Huang Yueli didn't even consider him, who else could she consider? So her rejection wasn't possibly because her heart already belonged to someone else. It could possibly be because he hadn't tried hard enough or she had not seen his sincerity. Li Moying had never really thought that the truth to this matter was actually like this. Various confused thoughts flashed past his mind as the strength which he used to lock on Huang Yueli's shoulder increased. What on earth are you talking about? Say it one more time. Huang Yueli didn't wake up, but she frowned from the touch of his violent streak. Li Moying subconsciously loosened his grip, but at the next moment, he realized that even in such a situation, he could not bear her getting hurt one single bit and started to despise himself. When had he dropped to such a coniology state? The most tragic thing was the other party didn't even bother one bit. Li Moying forced himself to push the young lady in his embrace away. After Huang Yueli was pushed away, she immediately came rolling back, hugging onto his lean and robust waist. Her beautiful face was still in a daze, not understanding why she was pushed away by someone who liked her so much. The look from this unconscious struggle attracted Li Moying's gaze. Very quickly, he felt that he was really senseless. The reason this little thing came running up was not because he was Li Moying, but because she thought he was the man whom she liked. If she knew that the person she was hugging was him, she would probably have hidden herself far, far away. As Celestial Light Sect's young sect master, soaring heaven's #1 talent in the younger generation, in her eyes, he was merely a replacement. You can also listen on. Thinking of this, the glow in Li Moying's eyes grew dimmer as he stared longingly at Huang Yueli's delicate fair face. For just a moment, he wanted to shake her vigorously to wake her up, forcing her to answer clearly who was the person she really liked was. Then he would go and kill that man who dared to vie with him for her before confining this little thing up so that she could not go anywhere else except to stay by his side and become his woman only. This impulse was so strong as Li Moying suppressed the urge and it started to hurt faintly and his fingers kept twitching. But finally at last, he took a deep breath as he pushed Huang Yueli away. He was really frightened, afraid that he would hear the scariest answer from this little thing's mouth. If she was conscious when she said that the person she liked the most was not him. Just thinking about this scenario made Li Moying feel that he was on the verge of insanity. Huang Yueli unforgivingly rolled over again. Li Moying arose and stood up from the bed. Huang Yueli found that she caught nothing and her expression reflected an extremely disappointed look as she pouted her lips. That pampered look made the man by the bedside wanted to give her a kiss. Her hands flew everywhere searching, but after some time, she didn't feel that muscular, warmth male body that she was looking for. In the end, she could only grab onto the pillow which Li Moying had slept on, rubbing it into her embrace, and as her movements came to a stop, her breathing gradually slowed down, she gradually went into dreamland. Li Moying stood by the bedside, not making a single sound, quietly watching her peaceful sleeping looks as his expression turned dark and gloomy. Looking at her for a long, long time. The next day. It was very late in the afternoon when the scorching sun rays soared into the room when Huang Yueli finally woke up. Her head was still dizzy and as she sat up, she felt dazed. It was after a little while when she recalled what happened last night. After she had won consecutively for 10 over battles, Li Shuer's pursuer, a fellow called Lei something, came to challenge her. Right after she had defeated him, that guy had actually became angry from embarrassment, throwing out a 7th tier soul fixation pearl causing a huge explosion in the martial arts stage. When she was affected by the effect of the explosion, she had fainted from it. But she had never thought that when she woke up, she actually found herself in the room. Moreover, it didn't seem like she had any injuries. What was happening? Could it be that soul fixation pearl was a defect and the impact of the explosion wasn't that huge? Moreover, after she had fainted, why didn't Lei Zichu take the opportunity to kill her? And who was it who had sent her back to her room? Huang Yueli shook her head and suddenly, a scenario came to her mind. She was hugging a man, proactively holding his neck in his arms and lifting her head to kiss him. The two of them were tangled together passionately and the clothes on their bodies were almost stripped off totally. The man's strong and robust body was pressing against her soft petite body. The difference between the strong and the weak was evident, making her feel shudder from deep within her senses. The scenario from her memory was so clear that she could even faintly feel that she had seen Mu Qingying yesterday. And even confessing to him loudly without any sense of shame. Huang Yueli's face flushed red and immediately pulled her blanket away. Lowering down her head, her clothes were still worn on properly and the front hook was hooked on tightly. She stood stunned for a moment. What was the situation? Could it be that, yesterday she had an erotic dream? You can also listen on. Just as Huang Yueli was in a daze, suddenly. Thump, thump, thump. A knocking sound rang and Su Qingyue's voice was heard from outside of the door. Sisterly, sisterly. Have you awoken? I'm here to see you. Huang Yueli hurriedly replied, Sister Su, please come in. Su Qingyue pushed the door open and with face filled with worry, she heaved a sigh of relief when she saw her sitting on the bed. You're all right. That's great. You'd scared me to my death yesterday night. No one had expected that Lei Zichu would be such a sore loser and deal you with such a heavy hand. He actually snuck an attack. Yesterday the entire martial arts stage was blown apart and many students on the viewing platform fainted from the impact of the explosion. You were there up on the martial arts stage and bore the brunt of the impact. I was so worried that I almost died, scared that you'd be heavily injured. But from the looks of it, you don't seem to be seriously injured. Huang Yueli nodded. I'm all right and I've only sustained some light injuries. Su Qingyue sighed sorrowfully as she expressed, sisterly, you're so powerful. I heard that was a 7th tier soul fixation pearl. That was equivalent to a 7th stage top exponent's full force strike. If I was there instead, I'd have become minced meat. But you only sustained light injuries. Your ability. I really cannot imagine. When Huang Yueli heard what she said, she frowned slightly and said, where on earth would I have such an ability to defend against a 7th stage practitioner's strike? Someone must have saved me yesterday. That's right, did you see who was it who saved me? At that time, even though she was about to lose her consciousness, but she indistinctly felt something. Someone saved her and that someone was an extremely powerful expert. That strong arms, warm embrace and that low-pitched sexy vocals, the feeling, felt similar to Li Moying. Could it be that, yesterday it was Li Moying? Su Qingyue blinked her eyes and said, that's probably Principal Jiang who saved you and sent you back. When the explosion happened, I also fainted and by the time I regained my consciousness, I saw Principal Jiang and the rest dealing with the aftermath and they even locked Lei Zichu up saying that they would punish him severely. Principal Jiang was able to reach her so soon so he definitely must be at the martial arts stage viewing your battle. It's probably him who showed himself when the soul fixation pearl exploded and saved you. Oh, so it's Principal Jiang. I must thank him properly. As Huang Yueli thoughtfully said that, she didn't notice the slightly disappointed look that she revealed on her face. Yesterday the person who saved her was Principal Jiang. That's right, no matter if it was Mu Qingying or Li Moying, it was impossible for them to appear at Celestial Light Academy now so it was really wishful thinking on her part. It was just a dream after all. Moreover, it was an erotic dream which made her face blush with increased heartbeat and widen her blood vessels. She simply could not imagine that she had behaved so wanton, so hungry, simply like a shameless vamp, actively seducing men. It was totally unimaginable and if this was true, she'd rather bang herself to death. Luckily, it was just a dream. Huang Yueli was both disappointed but yet slightly felicitate as the expression on her face as ever-changing. Su Qingyue saw that and asked her curiously, sisterly, what's the matter with you? Are you feeling all right? Do you want to rest a little while? I won't disturb you then. You can also listen on. Su Qingyue stood up planning to leave. No need, I'm fine. Huang Yueli pulled onto her in a hurry, Sister Su, what's the reason for you to visit me today? Su Qingyue hesitated for a moment, you're really all right. But your expression didn't seem so well. Huang Yueli replied, I'm really fine. Don't I know the condition of my own body best? Sister Su, do go ahead and tell me what you have on your mind. Su Qingyue answered her, sisterly, the last time. Before you went for the battle, didn't you let us to bet on your all-win? I've listened to you and went to buy a little. But as my guts is very small, I only bet 1,000 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones and I didn't expect that, you really won. This is really out of my expectations. I didn't expect that you'd be able to win so many battles and even Lei Zichu who was ranked 8th in martial arts stage had been defeated by you. Huang Yueli smiled, you've overpraised me. She knew that Su Qingyue's words are not finished yet. As expected, Su Qingyue continued, that day, besides me who had bet on your all-win, there are several friends of mine who had come from the surrounding countries around South Yu Kingdom, so we can be considered as fellow countrymen. Because of you, they'd earned a huge amount of spirit stones, and hearing that you're from South Yu Kingdom, they'd like to get acquainted to you. I wonder if... Sisterly, do you have any time and is it convenient? Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards and nodded, of course it's convenient. Since we're all from neighboring countries, let's gather together. I've not met many people in Celestial Light Academy yet. Su Qingyue delightfully replied, all right, I'll get them to come over right now. Su Qingyue ran towards the door and immediately called the rest to enter Huang Yueli's courtyard. In actual fact, those people had already been standing at the entrance. But they did not dare to barge into Huang Yueli's territory, so they had been waiting for Su Qingyue's announcement. When they saw Huang Yueli, they immediately swarmed over and greeted her with the term senior sister. In reality, Huang Yueli was much younger than all of them, but as her power was simply too strong, all of them had addressed her with the senior sister title, which was evident that they were here to rely on her. Huang Yueli had wanted to reduce them to submission long ago, and from her understanding from Su Qingyue, they had always been bullied in Celestial Light Academy and had been in search of a strong backing. However, as she had just joined the academy, her base wasn't stable enough, so she hadn't approached them without careful consideration. At that time, she was just a new top student, and although her ability wasn't too bad, it hadn't reached the time for others to take the initiative to defect to her yet. Even if she interacted with them, others would only treat her as a newbie who wished to stand out and sucked her into their entity. In that case, she would only become a member. But what Huang Yueli wanted was not to be an ordinary member. Since she was going to join in, naturally she must obtain absolute control, making everyone swear their allegiance towards her. So she had been waiting for the perfect opportunity. But now that she had revealed her outstanding talent and defeated Lei Zichu, who was ranked 8, displaying her overwhelming strong ability. To be able to rank in the top 10 in Celestial Light Academy was an exceedingly talented pronoun. At this place, innate talent and power represented identity and status. The top 10 students of the martial arts stage were like one of the academy's leader among one of the powerhouses, and numerous students would swear their allegiance. You can also listen on. This kind of her finally made the small team among Su Qingyue unrushed, and after discussion, they quickly hurried over to rely on her. To express their sincerity, none of them came empty-handed and brought along various expensive gifts. Huang Yueli didn't bother to act unconventional and accepted it all. After exchanging conventional greetings, the few of them exchanged glances with Su Qingyue. Su Qingyue reciprocated and tried to sound her out. Sisterly, I mentioned this to you earlier that the situation in Celestial Light Academy is very complicated, and as practitioners from small countries, we are easily bullied by those students who come from the large families in Sky Cloud City. So as not to let others look down on us, we will usually move out together. Huang Yueli did not continue from her stubble and merely smiled. Sister Su thinking is right. Su Qingyue realized that she had no response and turned anxious. Sisterly, join us. Think about it, you're also from a small country. Although your innate talent is very outstanding, but you've also seen it for yourself. Influential families like Lei Zichu hold a lot of resources from their families, and their cultivation methods and profound armaments that they use are much more powerful than ours. Moreover, many influential families in Sky Cloud City are interlinked. Since you've hurt Lei Zichu, the other families would also treat you as their enemy. Although their power might possibly be weaker than yours and not dare to challenge you, but it is still possible that they will set various hurdles for you in the academy. Huang Yueli lifted her cup as she replied with a calculated and unhurried tone, so what? Are you still muddle-headed? In the academy, various battles cannot be avoided, and if there are people who keep going against you, how will you be able to concentrate on cultivating? Huang Yueli put the teacup back on the table, and as the bottom of the cup knocked against the tabletop, it gave out a resounding crisp sound. Sister Su, don't be mistaken. There are indeed many influential families' disciples in the academy, but I don't believe they can do anything to me. I'm a core student, and moreover, I'm ranked top 10 in the martial arts stage. Perhaps one day I'd be able to join Celestial Light sect. Those influential families are not silly, and they'd be in a hurry to draw me over, so why would they come and pick on me? I think the people who needs protection should be you, right? Your power isn't enough and your status is inadequate. So it's perfectly normal for anyone to snatch your resources. However, you have no right social connection to find the correct backing. If you need me to protect all of you, it can be done. But I never keep useless people around me. If you want me to help you guys, then naturally there would be some conditions. After she finished saying these, those present turned green and white. The motive to look for Huang Yueli was to defect to her, while on the other hand, they held some wishful thinking. After all, no one liked to be another's lackey, and they thought that since Huang Yueli was still young and had her mind on cultivation, she probably didn't understand the ways of the world. It would be best if they could use some sayings like sharing the same hatred for the common enemy to coax her into joining their small team voluntarily, so she could contribute a part of effort for them, which would be the best consequence. Whoever knew that Huang Yueli totally wasn't tricked at all. Saying till here, they came to realize that Huang Yueli wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. Su Qingyue raised her head to look at Huang Yueli, and upon seeing that exquisite face with that faint smile, she saw that beneath her eyes. It revealed swift and fierce signs. She was gazed upon by that glare and instinctively shuddered as she lowered her head. A youth asked, "Senior Sister Bai, please express clearly what are your conditions and what you can help us with. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli slowly said, "My conditions are very simple. If you wish for me to help, then you must completely pledge your allegiance to me. Let's bond via a blood pact and swear your loyalty to me, with no duplicity." There were many common ways of controlling subordinates. For example, Li Moying's shadow guards actually didn't have too much of a strong binding, and it was totally reliant on themselves to swear their loyalty towards Li Moying. But this kind of relationship required both parties to have a strong sense of trust before it could be formed. Li Moying had grown up with the shadow guards since he was young, which was why he was able to trust them and not worry about any form of betrayal. Huang Yueli didn't have that kind of trust towards these practitioners from the small countries. The reason was because they were originally here for the benefits. Perhaps at the beginning, because of Su Qingyue, Huang Yueli didn't want to make things too absolute, but when she came to realize that they had various ideas during their arrival and had intended to trick her, Huang Yueli then decided not to show mercy. Blood pact was better than planting a slave seal. For those practitioners who were planted the slave seal, they would be bound as a slave to the person who planted the seal for their entire life, and upon a single thought from the master, they could be completely stripped of their self-consciousness and become a puppet. But a blood pact was different. It had a time limit, and once the duration had lapsed, the blood pact would be ineffective. Moreover, the Covenanter had their own freedom. If they had something to betray their master, then the other party would automatically find out and could be traced easily. Most practitioners who had stronger abilities would resist to their death upon knowing that they would be planted the slave seal. Sometimes, they might lose more than they expect. But most people were able to accept blood pacts. As long as their power was strong enough, a lot of people would admit defeat. Upon hearing what Huang Yueli said, their expressions turned extremely ugly. "This. Senior Sister Bai, don't you think it's a little too unsightly to say such a thing like that?" "That's right. Your innate talent is indeed outstanding, but all of us are senior and junior brothers and sisters, and yet you want to form a blood pact with us. Don't you think you're slightly overbearing?" The few of them bore a condemning attitude, deeply feeling that they had been insulted. Everyone knew that Huang Yueli would raise her conditions, but no one had expected that she wanted them to completely become her subordinates. Each of these people who entered Celestial Light Academy were all the cream of the crop, and many of them were some royal prince or princesses in some small country, so they had never been subjected to such contempt before. Huang Yueli's expression remained indifferent. If you're not willing, you're welcome to leave now. The few of them exchanged glances. Earlier the first youth to speak out was Yu Xinyang, and he gritted his teeth as he spoke out. Senior Sister Bai, I know you need people to carry out errands for you in the academy, and we're all willing to serve you. But the thing about blood pact. What's the point? Don't tell me that you don't trust us. I really don't trust you. You all. What qualifications do you have to make me believe you? Huang Yueli spoke bluntly without euphemism as the expressions on their faces turned even uglier. However, she didn't care a single bit about the crowd's response and said coldly, one word, willing or not willing. Those who are not willing can leave right now. Don't make me repeat the third time. The few of them looked at each other as they couldn't make a decision. Everyone were talented practitioners who thought highly of themselves, and they were ignored even though they automatically came over to pledge their allegiance and even requested to form a blood pact. Just thinking about it was hard to accept. After hesitating for some time, someone finally opened their mouth. You can also listen on. This sort of condition. I cannot accept it. Goodbye. After that person finished his words, he turned around and left. With the first person starting the trend, the rest of them didn't hesitate further and started to leave one by one. Su Qingyue turned anxious and called out, you all. You're all going to leave like that? But what if that Jiang Hongyi comes to find trouble for us again? What shall we do? If this goes on, none of our star currency would be left and we're unable to cultivate. Don't tell me that we're going to be suppressed by other people for the 5 years that we're in Celestial Light Academy. Everyone's footsteps took a halt. Senior Sister Su, Yu Xinyang opened his mouth and his face was filled with struggles, apparently indecisive. Huang Yueli instantly realized that this bunch of people had been bullied so severely that they came over to rely on her. She raised her brows as she said, what is the matter? What trouble have you gotten into? Yu Xinyang replied, yes, we have trouble. But even if it's you, it's also impossible to solve it completely. Oh. Really? You didn't say, so how do you know it's not possible? Yu Xinyang hesitated for a moment. If you really have a way to deal with that fellow, I might agree to your conditions. Junior brother Yu. What are you thinking of? This is a blood pact. A few of them cried out in shock. Yu Xinyang said loudly, but I've got enough. We cannot go on like this. Even time we managed to earn some star currency, those students from the influential families would send people to come and snatch it away. After joining Celestial Light Academy for 2 years, we haven't even learnt one single cultivation method. We can stay in this academy for at most 5 years. If this drags on, it would have been a wasted trip to come to Sky Cloud City. When we return to our country, how would other people see us? The crowd kept silent and stopped in their footsteps, not daring to take one step outwards. Huang Yueli said with a smile which didn't look like a smile, all right, now can anyone tell me the situation with the person who you need to deal? Su Qingyue looked at the few of them and opened her mouth. The matter is like this. Huang Yueli quickly found out the cause and effect. Actually, the matter was very simple. Just before Huang Yueli came to this place, the Academy's most powerful martial arts stage top 10 were entirely the disciples from Sky Cloud City's influential families. Each of them belonged to different powerhouses, and the Academy had already gathered quite a number of people, occupying the Academy's resources. And among those people whom they enrolled, those small country students became their target to bully by those influential families' disciples, so they had bitter words stuck in their throats but unable to voice it out. Su Qinghua, that bunch of people were oppressed by a coarse student called Jiang Hongyi. Every month he would collect 10-star currency from all of them as protection fee. Su Qinghua and gang's ability were just not enough, and they couldn't even make more than 10-star currencies per month, so it was impossible for them to cough it out. Therefore they were beaten up daily and all their star currency were snatched away. Without star currency, they wouldn't get any resources in Celestial Light Academy, not to mention exchange for cultivation methods or profound skills to cultivate. Senior Sister Bai, you've also heard that this Jiang Hongyi is one of the subordinates of the martial arts stage ranking number 1's Mr. Yuan. If we were to take it up with him, it would be equivalent to offending Mr. Yuan. I wonder if you dare to take up this trouble of helping us solve this. Yu Xinyang replied in provocation as he raised his chin. Huang Yueli replied indifferently, what's there not to dare? But I won't help you solve this trouble. You're all grown up, and since you've created this problem, go solve it yourself. Yu Xinyang sneered, I already said you don't dare to, what's there to pretend? Before he could complete his sentence, he was suddenly stunned. You can also listen on. A slender hand extended in front of him. In that hand was a scroll. What is this? Yu Xinyang received the scroll and opened it up. Upon one look, his hand trembled. This is an Earth-grade lower-level cultivation method. What? Earth-grade lower-level cultivation method. Everyone started to crowd around him as they stared in shock at the scroll in Yu Xinyang's hand. In the entire Soaring Heavens continent, cultivation method was something that was extremely difficult to get hold of. Outside the academy, an original scroll of an Earth-grade lower-level cultivation method's auction price was extraordinary, something which even 6th-stage realm practitioners were not able to afford. Even if it's within Celestial Light Academy, students require a huge amount of star currency to exchange for cultivation methods. Moreover, these students were not course students, so their scope of authority did not allow them to exchange for an Earth-grade cultivation method. This was why everyone's eyes almost dropped out when they saw Huang Yueli give out an original scroll of Earth-grade cultivation method. This. Senior Sister Bai, what do you mean by this? Huang Yueli held her teacup as she drank a mouthful of tea and replied, when you came over, you brought along many gifts and I have nothing to give in return, so this scroll is my gift to you. Mastering this cultivation method scroll should be enough to let you defeat that Jiang something fellow. You, what conditions do you have? Do you want us to sign the blood pact now? Yu Xinyang asked. Huang Yueli put down her teacup as her lips curled upwards to reflect a smile, but the expression in her eyes were filled with frost. You think I'm begging you to declare your loyalty to me? Based on your innate talent and cultivation, to be able to join my team is your good fortune that your ancestors had done in their past lives. Since you don't know what's good for you, you can leave now. But next time you want me to accept you, it won't be that simple anymore. Everyone looked at each other and looked at the cultivation method scroll, then finally looked at Huang Yueli's icy cold face in disbelief. What did that mean? Huang Yueli didn't want them to swear their allegiance and just gave them a cultivation method scroll. Where on heavens would you find something so cheap? Had she become retarded? After they had received the cultivation method and settled their problems, who would come back and look for her? And beg her to accept them as her subordinate? What kind of joke was that? The few of them exchanged glances and with oil on their feet, they sped away. After gaining such a big advantage, whoever who didn't leave was an idiot. Only Su Qinghua and Yu Xinyang felt bad as they hesitated. We'd done nothing to gain a cultivation method for nothing. Huang Yueli swept them one glance as she said, no need to stand on ceremony. This cultivation method is not given away for nothing. If you still want to look for me, make sure you master this cultivation method within 7 days and deal with that Jiang fellow before you come and look for me again." The both of them didn't really understood, but since Huang Yueli wasn't willing to speak further, they could only leave. After sending them away, Huang Yueli also went out. To her, there was a pressing matter, and that was to collect all the recorded medicinal herbs in 9 phoenix transformations required for cultivating the 3rd level. Otherwise her advancement this time would not be perfect and she would be unable to break through 3rd stage 4th level. Staying on the same level for long term would be damaging to her body as well. She now held a huge amount of star currency, and the fastest method would be to go to Celestial Light Academy's herb garden to search for the herbs. However, when she was nearing the public square, she discovered a large circle of people crowding together, and moreover, they were all female students. What kind of situation was this? Huang Yueli's footsteps halted as she heard a female student speaking. "My, did you see that? The senior brother who Principal Jiang personally brought over is simply too handsome. Just looking at him make me want to faint." You can also listen on. Yes, yes. Senior brother is simply too handsome. I've never seen such a handsome man before in my entire life. Quickly move aside and let me squeeze in a bit more. Stop squeezing. Can't you see that it's full of people here? Hearing the crowd's conversation, Huang Yueli curiously casted a glance towards the crowd of people. The result was she saw a tall and straight figure from behind, and he was crowded around in the middle by others, so she couldn't see his full view at all. She was somewhat speechless at this point of time. This bunch of ladies were all crowding here just to see a rear view of a man whom they couldn't even see clearly. Just how handsome was this man? Could he be more handsome than Mu Qingying? Or more handsome than Li Moying? Apparently, it's impossible. They're really little girls who had not seen the world. Hearing a few female students speak out again, "Speaking of this senior brother is not just handsome only. I heard that his innate talent and ability are exceedingly outstanding and is very, very powerful." "Yes, I've heard of that too. It's rumored that Principal Jiang personally invited him to Celestial Light Academy, and his personal ability is already very strong. So he'd only be staying here for a while. His aim should be the Academy's tournament in the second half of the year, in preparation to enroll into Celestial Light sect. Wow! He's so awesome. I wonder if this senior brother versus martial arts stage number 1 rankings Mr. Yuan, who is more powerful. Mr. Yuan is one of the famous handsome male in Sky Cloud City. Judging from looks, Mr. Yuan had been defeated completely. As for ability, HMPF, I believe senior brother is also very awesome and powerful. He definitely cannot be worse off than Mr. Yuan. Handsome men are definitely powerful. Face value is justice. Huang Yueli heard their discussions as her lips curled upwards, feeling slightly funny and yet a little envious. So, this is a normal practitioner's student life. To crowd around just to look at the new handsome senior brother or something. She had never done this kind of thing in her entire 2 lifetimes. She sighed with regret for a while, turned around and left. She totally didn't notice that when she left, the man who was being crowded around turned around and his complicated gaze looked at her rear view. This person was Li Moying. Li Moying looked at her light footsteps, and without turning around she continued on her way, so he was feeling extremely oppressed in his heart. A peerless handsome living male standing right here, and so many love-struck women had crowded around to look at him, but this little lass wasn't interested at all. Earlier she was looking here but didn't actually recognize him. Looking at her refreshed look, apparently the thing that had happened last night didn't affect her at all. Only he spent the entire night sleepless till dawn. Who was the person that she liked? This question had been reverberating in his heart many times, casing him unable to even have a moment of peace. His leer. Could it be that there was no way she would belong to him? Huang Yueli left the public square and walked along a small path all the way to Celestial Light Academy's herb garden. This field of herb garden was the largest that she had seen since her rebirth. Looking afar, it occupied the entire mountain slope. There were many students who had crowded around the pavilion at the entrance to exchange herbs, whereas there were 2 teachers who were in charge of the exchange. One of them had a long queue in front of him, and that queue was extremely long, all the way from the outside of the pavilion and circling the pavilion several rounds. The other teacher, however, had no crowd at all. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli thought it was rather strange as she turned around and tapped a student in the queue as she asked, "Why do you all queue at the same line? Isn't there no one over at that side?" The student replied, "This junior sister, from the clothes that you're wearing, you're a first-year student and had just joined the academy. No wonder you don't know the regulations. That teacher is only in charge of helping the core students exchange herbs. Or if you're exchanging for herbs worth 1,000 star currency and above, you can also go to that queue." "I see, yes, junior sister, now you understand. 1,000 star currency. Other than those top 100 ranking tycoons in the martial arts stage, who else would have so much star currency? Moreover, be willing to exchange it for herbs. As for core students, it would be even more difficult. The academy only has a total of less than 200 core students among all the students in the academy. So that queue usually doesn't have anyone queuing at all." The male student thought Huang Yueli was young and she's a rather exquisite beauty, so he had some liking for her and told her a couple more information. "I understand now, thank you, senior brother." Huang Yueli nodded her head at him. The make student smiled, "No need for thanks. Junior sister, hurry and queue up behind. There's not much people in the early afternoon, but as more and more people comes, quickly, don't waste any more time." Before he could finish his words, he saw Huang Yueli turning around and headed towards the table where there was no queue. He immediately got anxious and called her from behind, "Junior sister, junior sister. You're headed the wrong way. The queue should be to walk towards the right side and you're heading to the left. Quickly come back. That old witch who's in charge of exchanging herbs for core students is very mean. Don't go and provoke her." Did you hear me?" He was so anxious that he stomped his feet, but Huang Yueli didn't seem to hear him as her footsteps didn't even stop for a moment. Very quickly, she stopped right in front of the other table. Seated there was a middle-aged woman. Her looks wasn't considered as ugly, but when she glanced at people with that icy cold expression on her face, she basically looked askance at other people. Her expression totally showed a snobbish look, and just one look and you know she's not some virtuous person. No wonder that male student had such an opinion of her earlier, even giving her a nickname of an old witch. Huang Yueli opened her mouth to ask, "This teacher, I'd like to exchange for herbs." The middle-aged woman glanced sideways at her and retracted her line of vision as though she didn't see her at all. Huang Yueli frowned slightly and raised her voice, "Teacher, I'd like to exchange for herbs." The middle-aged woman seemed to have discovered her existence and slowly casted her a glance as she sneered. "Little miss, you're in the wrong queue. My queue is only for Celestial Light Academy students with value and status. Poor students like you who had just entered the school should quietly go queue up instead of coming here to get scolded by me." Huang Yueli's eyebrows creased as she replied, "Teacher, please speak politely. I'm a core student." "Core student?" The middle-aged woman seemed to have heard a biggest joke of the year. "What joke are you cracking? Think I didn't see the first-year uniform that you're wearing? Core student. I'm telling you, there had never been any first-year student who made it to become a core student. Don't brag. Did you think Guameli could be tricked so easily? Quickly get lost and leave." Huang Yueli wanted to continue but saw the middle-aged woman's expression changed as she stood up. You can also listen on. Young Master Zheng, you're free today to drop by. What herbs do you want to exchange? Let me know. I'll immediately look for it for you. Recently we received a bunch of good quality herbs and it's all very fresh. The medicinal effects are absolutely first-rated. And there's also 5th grade medicinal herbs. The catalog is here, why don't you take a look first? Standing up is too tiring, so please take a seat here, right here. Middle-aged woman smiled obsequiously, looking right behind Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli turned around and saw a tall and lean youth standing behind her. So it's young Master Zhang. He's Xing Weiqing, who's ranked 3rd in martial arts stage. No wonder that old witch had become so disgusting. TSK, isn't it so? She's just like that, a kind of attitude towards influential families, rich young masters and course students with a bright future, whereas another attitude towards ordinary students like us. She's such a snob. Isn't that so? But there's no other way. It's all because our ability isn't comparable to other people. Such a pity that new student is quite pretty, but she doesn't understand how things work around here and provoked that old witch. Today would be the day where she would be humiliated. Not true, that new student, why do I feel that she looks rather familiar? Familiar? She just joined the academy and you're already finding her familiar. I think you think that she's pretty and want to pretend to act familiar so that you can hit on her. The battle that Huang Yueli had yesterday made her become an instant celebrity in Celestial Light Academy. But as the tournament stage was rather far from the rear rows in the viewing platform, they weren't able to see clearly what she looked like. Moreover, she had just entered the school a few days ago, so most people didn't have any chance to get to know her. So there were plenty of people who couldn't recognize that she was Huang Yueli who had defeated Lei Zichu. Middle-aged woman took the initiative to invite Xing Weiqing to take a seat and even made tea for him before pulling out a thick book of catalog, flipping it page by page for him. Huang Yueli saw what she was going and walked over. Stretching out her hand, she pressed onto the pages of the medicinal herb catalog. Teacher, I recall that. I seem to be the one who was here first. Don't tell me that in Celestial Light Academy, there isn't a single set of rules. Don't you know exchanging herbs requires one to queue up and be served in order of arrival? Middle-aged woman didn't expect that after her criticizing, not only did she not leave in embarrassment, she even jumped out and cut into her flattering. Her face sunk immediately. Cut queue. What do you think you are, even dare to say young Master Zhang cut your queue? You're not even qualified to queue up here. I'm warning you, you'd better hurry up and scram from here. Don't bother young Master Zhang, otherwise I won't be nice to you. For intentionally creating trouble at the herb garden and disrupt the order to exchange herbs, do you know what kind of punishment you will get? Huang Yueli's glare shimmered as her voice turned chilly. Why do I not have the qualification? I've already said this earlier, I'm also a core student. I have the right to exchange for herbs here. Really? Then where is your evidence? If you have what it takes, show me your identity token. The middle-aged woman sneered. Huang Yueli immediately took out her identity token, but she immediately thought of something and went into a blank. Because her identity token was still an ordinary student's token which was uniformly distributed during their enrollment. The examiner had told her at that time that after she had enrolled, she should report to the course student management office so that she can exchange for a course student specialized token. But after she entered the school, first she went into closed-door cultivation followed by battles and had been extremely busy, not even sparing a bit of time to go and exchange the token. You can also listen on. So the token in her hand was not the course student's identity token. As expected, when the middle-aged woman saw the token in her hand, she laughed out loud immediately. You don't even bother to read the script before you brag. Do you think I'm blind and cannot tell that that token is an ordinary student's token? Who are you trying to bluff by showing that? If you're trying to think of an excuse and say you forgot to bring your token, I might just hesitate, but now that you've taken that out, do you think I'm not idiot? Huang Yueli glanced at her coldly as hatred formed in her heart. Such an ignorant and snobbish nasty person. If it was the usual times, she really wanted to slap this kind of person to death. Unfortunately, this was Celestial Light Academy and she would definitely get into trouble for beating up a teacher. Although she wasn't afraid of trouble, but before she got the chance to investigate the clue that Bai Lu Feng left for her, she must remain low-key and not flout the school regulations. Huang Yueli thought about it and said, I didn't have the time to go to the course student management office to exchange my token. Forget it since you don't believe me, but I heard that exchanging medicinal herbs valued at 1,000 star currency and above could be done here, isn't it? The middle-aged woman sneered, that's right. But you, a new student, couldn't possibly exchange a 1,000 star currency medicinal herb? Even if you're the new top student, it's merely just 100 star currency. Alright, stop pretending. I'll give you 3 breaths time and you'd better scram. Otherwise, before she could finish her sentence, Xing Weiqing, who was sitting on the chair, suddenly spoke out a "e" sound. The middle-aged woman hurriedly turned around. Young Master Zheng, what instructions do you have? Please wait a moment, let me get rid of this. Xing Weiqing didn't bother about her as his glance fell onto Huang Yueli, new top student just enrolled and became a course student, and she had a huge amount of star currency in her hands. If I'm not wrong, you're this year's new top student, Bai Ruoli, who's from South Yu Kingdom. Huang Yueli replied indifferently, that's right, that is me. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. Xing Weiqing stood up and looked at her from above. I really didn't expect that this year's new student to have such a talent like you. Just barely half a month of entering the academy, you defeated my cousin Lei Zichu and made him suffer so badly. This is a huge challenge to the entire Soaring Heavens continent's influential families. Lass, your predicament is really not good. Huang Yueli's eyebrows rose in surprise. So this martial arts stage rank number 3 Xing Weiqing was actually Lei Zichu's cousin. No wonder it was rumored that the 8 influential families in Sky Cloud City are interlinked and everyone were mostly relatives and naturally shared success and suffered defeat together. But they were nothing in Huang Yueli's eyes. She casually laughed, hee, this words. From the day I took part in the entrance examinations, quite a number of people had told me the same thing. Unfortunately, without an exception, all of them had been beaten flat to the ground by me. As for myself, I'm still alive and kicking today, or perhaps I should say, I'm living better and better as each day goes by. Xing Weiqing didn't see the battles at martial arts stage that day because he was ranked 3rd and was considered a celebrity. So no matter how strong a new student was, he couldn't possibly lower his own identity to go and view this kind of battle. So he had never expected Huang Yueli to be so wild. His impression of practitioners who were born from small countries, no matter how much ability or how high their innate talents were, towards these disciples from those influential families, they were still not comparable. You can also listen on. At least, no matter what the heart was thinking, but on the surface they would absolutely not dare to go against them. However, Huang Yueli directly slapped his unbridled words back onto his face. Xing Weiqing's expression turned ugly as he stared at Huang Yu gloomily. Why? Don't tell me that you thought you had defeated Lei Zichu and you're able to fight against me. As expected of a new student, this thinking is just too naive. The top 10 contenders in the martial arts stage have a huge distance between each rank. I heard that you and Lei Zichu are just on par and had only won at the last moment. As for me, I only need to make one move and I'd be able to defeat him. Huang Yueli had an indifferent smile on her face, So powerful. Don't tell me that you want to challenge me too. Under those who didn't know the truth or those whose abilities were much weaker, it seemed like the both of them were on par since they were entangled in a long battle. Zhang Weiqing's expression turned even uglier as he sneered, I will challenge a new student like you. I still want my reputation. Since you're so self-confident, then just wait and see. Celestial Light Academy isn't as simple as you think it is. After finishing up what he had to say, he pointed to several types of medicinal herbs on the catalog, these, and these. Send it to my residence later. Middle-aged woman hurriedly nodded her head in response. Zhang Weiqing finished up and turned around to leave. After his departure, the whole herb garden started to bustle. She's actually that new top student by Ruoli. Heavens, it's really her. Is she the real McCoy? I was standing quite far away from the martial arts stage that day and couldn't see clearly at all. She must be the real person. Didn't you hear her admit it? Moreover, what status does young Master Zhang have? How could he possibly recognize the wrong person? She had created Celestial Light's new records, to become a core student on her first day as a new student. After she had joined for merely 10 days, she easily replaced Lei Zichu to become number 8 in the martial arts stage. I heard that she's only 14 and had already broke through to 3rd stage realm. And she's from a small country without any resources. Her innate talent is simply so strong that she's scary. Could she be 7th grade talent? Just entered the school and she's already so powerful. If she stayed on in the academy for 2 years, after Mr. Yuan and the rest graduated, it will be a matter of fact before she becomes rank number 1 in the martial arts stage. Those ordinary students present were in discussions, all using an admirable gaze as they looked at Huang Yueli. Her achievements were just too astonishing. Perhaps those practitioners from influential families felt jealousy or heavy-heartedly towards her, but in ordinary students' hearts, her existence was already like a goddess. This was really a true talented lady, and all those present could only look up to her. As for the middle-aged woman, she was in complete shock. She totally despised this young lady earlier, and she was, actually, a terrifying peerless talent. She became a core student on her first day of school. Defeated Lei Zichu. Martial arts stage ranking number 8. Any 1 point were all Celestial Light Academy's record-breaking achievement. Only this kind of talent was able to cause such a huge tidal wave, and her future achievements were imaginable. The middle-aged woman's face turned green and white, filling her heart with regret. Toward such an outstanding genius with such talent, she would never have dared to offend one bit. You can also listen on. Now, because of her bad eyesight, she failed to tell that Huang Yueli was a peerless talent and even used that attitude of despise to talk to her earlier. The middle-aged woman's back was filled with sweat and her legs almost gave way, to the point of kneeling down. Bai. Miss Bai. Huang Yueli's eyebrows rose as she spoke in a seemingly smile. I already mentioned earlier that I'm a core student, but teacher, you don't seem to believe. No, I believe. The middle-aged woman hurriedly responded, Miss Bai, earlier my eyes had failed me and I was unable to identify your great ability. An outstanding talented student like you will of course be able to exchange for medicinal herbs here. Your cultivation is the number 1 greatest matter, who would dare to delay it at all? Please come this way, take a seat, I'll treat you to tea. What herbs do you need? Please take your time and choose, Huang Yueli replied, I don't dare to stay here to choose the medicinal herbs. After all, I'm a newly enrolled student and I'm not able to present my identity token. Delaying a teacher's time is a huge crime. Maybe I should go check with the herb garden director to see how I can get to exchange for medicinal herbs. The middle-aged woman heard that and her face turned pale with fright. One must know that those who were able to become the top 10 course students were all holding extraordinary statuses in the academy beyond ordinary students' imagination. If they were not satisfied with any of the managing teachers and went ahead to complain, in light of evidence, the managing teacher would be dismissed immediately. She hurriedly said, "Miss Bai, please have mercy and forgive me. How about this? This is your first time coming to the herb garden to exchange for medicinal herbs, right? Then for all the herbs that you're exchanging today, I'll give you a 10% discount. Please take your pick slowly, 10%. No, no, no. 20%, 20%. The middle-aged woman felt her hesitation and quickly lowered the standard. Huang Yueli then nodded, "All right. Since teacher is so generous and I'm not those kind of arrogant *** type of people," although she did have quite an amount of star currency on her hands, but if she were to exchange for medicinal herbs, it would be those extremely high-grade ones. There were some which were even 7th level medicinal herbs, and perhaps Celestial Light Academy might not even have it. If they did have, the pricing should be very shocking, and perhaps even these 10 over 100,000 star currency might not be enough. If she could scrimp, she would. Moreover, 20% was indeed much cheaper than usual. Seeing that she nodded her head, the middle-aged woman heaved a sigh of relief before she passed that thick book of catalog to Huang Yueli. "Then, please take a seat over here. Whatever herbs you need, please let me know so that I can bring it over for you." Huang Yueli didn't look at the catalog but instead drew out a list. "The herbs I want are these, but I'm not sure if the academy has it all." Middle-aged woman opened the list to take a look and her hand shook. "This. Lithe grass, 3rd level, 20 stalks. Silver frost branch, 3rd level, 20 pieces. Rainbow light grass, 4th level, 10 stalks. Spirit heart vine, 4th level, 20 pieces." Just looking at the top few items on the list, the middle-aged woman was shocked as her voice started to tremble. "Me? Miss Bai, you intend to exchange for so many medicinal herbs today? Why? Do you have that much star currency?" She indeed had the authority to give the person who wanted to exchange herbs discount, but the highest discounted amount that she could give was merely 200 star currency. Anything more than 200 star currency, she'd need to top it up from her own pocket. You can also listen on. She was thinking that since Huang Yueli was a new student, at most she would only have a few hundred star currency on hand, and it was impossible for her to use it all to exchange for medicinal herbs, which was why she had generously given the discount earlier. Whoever knew that Huang Yueli was such a rich tycoon? Just in that list alone, the herbs she had seen earlier were valued at several thousand star currency. Moreover, there was still a long list to go. Why? Suspect that I don't have money. Huang Yueli took out her identity token. "I have here 10 over 100,000 star currency. To purchase these medicinal herbs, it should be more than enough." When the middle-aged woman heard what she said, she almost fainted on the spot. 10 over 100,000 star currency. Please don't tell her that so much star currency was to be used on purchasing medicinal herbs. Huang Tuili used the identity token and knocked against the table edge as she urged, "Teacher, can you hurry a bit? You also know that my cultivation time is very precious and cannot waste it on waiting for you to find the medicinal herbs. If you don't know how much reserve stock the herb garden has, then you really don't know your job well." If I were to reflect this to the academy, middle-aged woman took a stumble as she spoke, trembling, "Me? Miss Bai, I really don't have such huge authority. If you want me to give such a huge discount, even if you beat me to death, I'm also not able to take it out. Moreover, the last few medicinal herbs on this list of yours are all 7th and 6th level, so I don't have any here. These high-level medicinal herbs all require the principal's approval, need the principal's approval." Huang Yueli's eyebrow rose. "Yes, really. We're not able to grow these medicinal herbs in our herb garden, and only in certain mystic region or danger zones would it be able to grow naturally. It is also extremely rare, and the resources in our academy is really not many, so just based on star currency, you might not be able to exchange for it and will require the principal's approval. Wang Yueli believed that this middle-aged woman would not dare to cheat her now. She thought about it and replied, "Then please hurry to help me send the request, I have urgent use for it." Middle-aged woman nodded her head continuously, "Yes, I'll go immediately." "Miss Bai, please wait here for a moment and drink some tea, I'll go report this to the garden director now." She turned around to leave once she finished her sentence. After the herb garden director got the news, he quickly reported this to Jiang Tuxin. When Jiang Tuxin originally heard that it was this year's super talented new top student applying for medicinal herbs, he was all smiles as he expressed in a relaxed attitude, "Since she wants it, then give it to her. After all, such a talent might not even appear in every 100 years. Wait, there are so many medicinal herbs on this list, these are all she wants." Just halfway through his words, Jiang Tuxin took carefully at the contents on the list as his expressed turned stiff immediately. Garden director hurriedly nodded, "That's right, that's what Miss Bai said herself." What kind of joke is this? Although her innate talent is not bad, but she's merely just entered third stage realm cultivation. Why on earth would she require 7th level medicinal herbs? Moreover, applying for just 1 or 2 kinds, I'd approve and give it to her. But now she's applying for 10 over high level medicinal herbs at one go, what is she thinking of? Jiang Tuxin frowned as he spoke painfully. The resources that Celestial Light Academy held was incomparable to their sect. Even those high-level medicinal herbs that he kept in the storage were painstakingly gotten from the sect and had been accumulated for many years. In the end, Wang Yueli came and opened her lion jaws, trying to take away all the hard-earned medicinal herbs which he had accumulated for so long. He really didn't bear to give it away. Jiang Tuxin replied, "No, approving all is impossible, you can also listen on." He thought and said, "But she is ranked top 10 in martial arts stage, so I cannot not give her any face at all, so just approve 2 kinds type 6th level medicinal herbs." Jiang Tuxin drew a horizontal line below the 2 kinds of medicinal herbs names and passed it to the herb garden director. Garden director responded, "Principal Jiang is really wise in handling this, I shall go and inform Miss Bai. What herbs does she want?" A cold and aloof voice was heard from the side. Before the garden director could react in time, he saw a slender beautiful big hand stretched to his front and took away the list in his hand. A young man dressed in Celestial Light Academy's course student robe held on to that thin piece of paper, carefully scrutinizing it. When the garden director saw him, he couldn't help but went into a blank. Who was this person? Celestial Light Academy's student? He couldn't recall seeing a student with such outstanding looks in the academy before. Moreover, the profound energy vibrations coming from him was simply too strong and had already exceeded the standard of what a course student should have. Even a teacher like him felt tremendous pressure. Bodhi Spiritual Ginseng, Green Cliff Dragon Karlgren. I thought it was some incredible item. Principal Jiang, you can't bear to give it away. After Li Moying went through the list, he folded the paper and threw it in front of Jiang Tuxin as he spoke out icily. Jiang Tuxin immediately quivered up as he turned anxious. Although he had just interacted for 2 days with this young sect master, but he already knew that this master was extremely hard to serve. For example now, although his tone sounded cold and aloof, but in actual fact, it represented that he was extremely unhappy. How did he offend him again? Jiang Tuxin twisted his thought around and suddenly came to an understanding. That's right, this application for high-level medicinal herbs was from the new top student, and she seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with young sect master. Yesterday when they were in the martial arts stage, young sect master personally appeared to save her and even threw a huge temper to dispose of Lazy Chew. And before that, young sect master had mentioned that he would like to live next to that young lass. Jiang Tuxin instantly regretted his decision as he hurriedly explained, "Young sect master, please don't misunderstand. I'm just following according to Celestial Light Academy's regulations to handle this matter only and not intentionally going against Miss Bai. I will now send my instructions down that as long as the herbs are something that Miss Bai requires, it will all be approved. No matter how many she required, we will issue it all to her." Saying that, he turned around and looked at the garden director. "What are you still waiting for? Didn't you hear what I said? Miss Bai is young sect master's friend, so serve her with care." Herb garden director just realized that the incredible handsome young man standing in front of him is actually the rumored youngest disciple with the most outstanding innate talent in the entire Celestial Light sect's history, whose name was reputed in the entire South Sky region, young sect master Li Moying. To have a legendary top VIP appearing in front of him made the herb garden director feel that his two legs were turning to jelly. But he still summoned up his courage to reply, "Yo. Young sect master, Principal Jiang, it's not that I don't want to do things well, but the items that Miss Bai wanted are just too many. And some are rather difficult to find, so our academy's storage don't have such medicinal herbs at all." When Jiang Tuxin heard that, he also frowned. "Young sect master, you see," Li Moying creased his forehead as he directly called out, "MOE. MOE hurriedly stood out, "Please give your orders, master. Immediately make a trip back to Celestial Light sect and using my name to get the herbs that third miss wants. Make haste and return quickly. By tonight, you must deliver the items to third miss." You can also listen on. Yes, your subordinate obeys. Moe knew how much Huang Yueli stood in Li Moying's heart and didn't dare to pretermit one bit. So he hurriedly left after he replied. Jiang Tuxin noted that scene and his heart was filled with even more suspicions and anxiety, not knowing what is Huang Yueli's background. Young sect master seemed to be head over heels for this young lass. Just hearing that she needed medicinal herbs, he immediately sent his most competent subordinate to get it for her, and even to deliver to her by nightfall. If he hadn't known that young sect master would be marrying the sect master's eldest daughter in future, he would definitely have mistaken that young sect master was interested in this young lass. But did young sect master needed to have such an ambiguous relationship with that young lass, and be so concerned about her? Could it be because of Bai Lu Feng? But Bai Lu Feng had already gone missing for 10 over years, and that year he was merely a 7th stage practitioner. In front of the peerlessness youth sect master, he really wasn't considered as anything great, right? Young sect master, this Miss Bai. Jiang Tuxin opened his mouth in an attempt to fish out information. Whoever knew that Li Moying didn't even bother to cast one glance at him as he turned around and disappeared into the room. Huang Yueli waited for a very long time in the herb garden. The middle-aged woman finally ran over, and in her hands were big and small packages, with bundles of medicinal herbs. And right behind her was the herb garden director. "Miss Bai, all the medicinal herbs of 5th grade and below that you wanted are here. Please make an inventory check." Herb garden director was all smiles as he bowed. The middle-aged woman was standing by the side when she was shocked by his adulate attitude. What was the situation? Why was the herb garden director so courteous to this young lass, and even, that attitude seemed to carry some blandish tone. As the herb garden director, his status in Celestial Light Academy was rather high-standing, so ordinary managers or teachers were incomparable to him. But now, the garden director was actually using such a respectful attitude towards the newly enrolled student. This was just impossible. Could something have gone wrong? One must know that even if he was right in front of the number one course student Mr. Yuan, the garden director was merely acting courteous and absolutely would not take the initiative to fawn on him. Even Huang Yueli herself was slightly surprised, but she didn't express it out and just nodded her head. Thank you very much, garden director, but how about those high-level medicinal herbs that I wanted? Garden director hurriedly replied, we do not have enough of those medicinal herbs in our academy's storage, so I've hurriedly arranged for it to be delivered from our sect. Later on we'll deliver it directly to your rooms, so please wait for a couple more hours. Huang Yueli was even more surprised. In actual fact, she was already mentally prepared that the academy might be missing a portion of the medicinal herbs and even thought that after a few days, she would make a trip to Sky Cloud City's medicinal herb stores and auction centers to search for the remaining medicinal herbs. Whoever knew that the academy would be so considerate and even personally request for those medicinal herbs for her? Was the treatment of the top 10 martial arts stage contenders that good? Huang Yueli took out her identity token and passed it over to the garden director. Please do a tally for me. Earlier that teacher said she'd give me 20% off. When the middle-aged woman heard these words, her eyes rolled back and she almost fainted, feeling that her heart was bleeding. She hurriedly replied, Miss Bai, this, whoever knew before she could open her mouth. Garden director replied, right, 20% discount. The things that Miss Bai wanted naturally cannot be charged too expensive. Saying that, garden director even gave her a look of praise. You can also listen on. What situation was this? As the incident happened too suddenly, the middle-aged woman was left completely stunned in a daze. Huang Yueli's forehead creased, but she didn't say anything much. After paying with her star currency, she kept her identity token and brought the medicinal herbs back. No matter what, for someone to send her medicinal herbs automatically, it wasn't really a bad matter. Since things went along so smoothly, Huang Yueli's mood was rather good as she sped back to her residence. But who knew, when she reached her residence, a huge crowd had formed along the doorway and most of them were ladies. So senior brother stayed around here. This is the core student's residence? Right. It's rumored that the other courtyard next to his is the residence of this year's new top student, the one who had won consecutively for more than 10 rounds yesterday. Her life is so good, to be able to stay next door to a male god senior brother. Woo, I envy her so much. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. What are you talking about? Why are you crowded around my courtyard entrance? A sweet voice was heard. Ugh, the female students all turned their heads in a hurry and saw a slender, delicate young lady standing behind them, curiously sizing them up. Someone in the crowd immediately recognized her. You're Bai Ruoli. So she's the lucky Bai Ruoli. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes as she asked puzzledly, lucky? What happened to me? Why are you all crowding around here? Someone tugged her and pointed to the courtyard next to hers and said, Junior sister Bai, don't you know that today a super handsome senior brother joined our academy today? Moreover, it was Principal Jiang who personally brought him over. He said he would be staying at our academy for half a year. Now he's staying right next to you. Senior brother, he's really very, very handsome. Female student's eyes turned into a heart shape. Huang Yueli was rendered speechless momentarily. So, you're here to take a look at that senior brother. Isn't he just slightly more handsome? Men, you cannot just judge them by their looks. Oh, what do you know? Senior brother hasn't just got looks only. The female student immediately showed an expression like she was insulted as she educated her with a tone full of justice. Did you know? Right after senior brother reported to the academy, the first thing he did was to challenge martial arts stage number 1 ranking Mr. Yuan. Oh. Really? The result? Hearing these, Huang Yueli suddenly felt an interest to know more. To challenge the #1 local villain on the first day of school, this overbearing attitude was not something that most people had. The female student said, "Do you need to ask? Senior brother only used one move and sent Mr. Yuan flying. A pity this was a last-minute battle and not a prearranged battle, so we didn't get to see the actual scenario. Senior brother is so handsome and so powerful, I'm going to be one of his admirers for my entire life." Her eyes turned into a heart shape once again. Huang Yueli went speechless once again. Did she need to exaggerate so much? Although to be able to win the #1 practitioner of the martial arts stage was indeed outstanding, but these female students had turned into love-struck idiots. This current scenario made her recall the scenario when Mu Qingying appeared in Sky Emperor City, which also caused a huge amount of love-struck idiot ladies to surround him. The ladies nowadays were really no longer reserved. That's right, you guys keep calling senior brother, senior brother. What's the name of this senior brother? Huang Yueli's curiosity acted up. You can also listen on. The female student went into a blank as she looked at her companions. Her companions displayed a blank look as well. Oh, I don't know. Seems like we've never heard of senior brother's name. Huang Yueli went speechless for the third time. This is really enough. Even not knowing the name could make these ladies love-struck until this state. Just how much charm did this man have? But no matter how handsome or devilish he was, it was none of her concern. Huang Yueli patted the female student's shoulders in front expressionlessly. "Excuse me, I want to return to my courtyard to cultivate. I'd like to trouble you all when you crowd around. Please try to move over to that side, not block the entrance of my residence." The female student stared at her blankly. "You're leaving just like that? Don't you want to see what senior brother looks like?" The female students weren't able to find the door and get in, so they were thinking since Huang Yueli was this senior brother's neighbor, perhaps they could make use of her as an excuse to pay a visit to her new neighbor and bring them a glance of the male god. But the result was she was totally not interested. However, Huang Yueli had already seen through their thinking. She wasn't interested in doing such a nonsensical matter as she had plenty of other important things to do. She pushed the crowd aside and went straight into her own courtyard. What Huang Yueli didn't know what in the other courtyard, there was someone hiding behind the window, quietly looking at her sweet and graceful figure. For that one moment, Li Moying had thought that Huang Yueli would come knocking on his door. Who knew that she would just leave like that? At present, Li Moying didn't know if he should feel disappointed or happy. Huang Yueli cultivated for an entire afternoon alone in her room, and it was until the evening when the herb garden director personally sent her the 6th and 7th level medicinal herbs. Huang Yueli tallied against her list and realized that this round of collecting the required herbs was extremely smooth and had been completed so easily. To prevent unexpected circumstances from happening, she immediately that tonight she would start her medicinal bath so as to gain more time in advancement. She didn't know much people in Celestial Light Academy, and it was not possible for anyone to come and find her. But for safety's sake, she set up an array around the surroundings of her courtyard. Following that, she took out a large bathtub from the Sky Phoenix ring and laid it with medicinal herbs before bringing Little Phoenix to light up the fire. True Phoenix fire burnt in rage, and that extremely glaring fire light lit up the entire room, making one unable to open one's eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that she had pre-set up an array, it was possible that this unusual ray might have already aroused the attention of the surrounding core students. Huang Yueli immediately stripped and jumped into the bathtub. The medicinal herbs in the bathtub was as stimulating as the past, and after the heating of true Phoenix fire, the entire bathtub was shrouded with thick white smoke, which looked extremely terrifying. But after her previous two experiences, she was already accustomed to the current scenario. She laid in the bathtub as her head laid against the side of the bathtub, using all her determination to resist against the extreme scorching pain. Little Phoenix wasn't as nervous as the previous 2 times. It perched itself on Huang Yueli's wardrobe while chipping away at his favorite roasted garlic drumstick and wiping the oil stains on its claw on the silverish white silk dress. Time went by slowly, bit by bit. Huang Yueli's tightly knitted forehead gradually relaxed a little as the bathtub's boiling hot red medicinal water turned lighter and lighter, eventually becoming transparent. Little Phoenix's head kept sinking downwards as it started to snore. You can also listen on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.